I could hear my sister's laughter echoing through the marble hallways of the office. Her voice always carried that sharp edge, the one she used when she wanted to cut me down without leaving any visible wounds. That morning, I was wearing my usual navy blue scrubs, hair tied in a tight bun, dark circles under my eyes from the night shift at the hospital. She sauntered in wearing a cream-colored suit, hair cascading in perfect waves, her designer heels clicking like an announcement of her importance. "Oh, look who's here," she said loudly enough for the reception staff to hear. "Did you come to clean up the floor or change someone's bedpan before your next job?" Her friends laughed softly behind her, their eyes darting between us. I forced a small smile, not for her, but to protect myself. If only she knew why I was really there that morning. She might have swallowed those words before letting them fly so proudly into the world. I didn't respond to her mockery. I never did. Silence was safer. And besides, words from someone like her couldn't touch the parts of me that mattered. I walked past her, ignoring the perfume cloud she left behind, and approached the mahogany reception desk. The receptionist, a woman named Grace, smiled at me with a softness that felt like a balm. "Good morning, Mrs. Keller," she said. My sister's laughter stopped abruptly. I could feel her eyes burning into my back, confused. "He's waiting for you in the boardroom," Grace added with a nod. I thanked her quietly and walked towards the frosted glass doors at the end of the hall. I felt my sister's confusion growing behind me like a shadow. She didn't know why I was here, why the CEO had called me in personally. To her, I was still just a night nurse with tired eyes and cheap shoes. But I kept walking, step by silent step, towards the room where her entire world would soon shift forever. As I entered the boardroom, the quiet hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. The CEO, Mr. Whitaker, stood by the panoramic window overlooking the city skyline, his silver hair glowing softly in the morning sun. He turned and smiled when he saw me. "Good morning, Emily," he said warmly. "We're ready when you are." I nodded, feeling my chest tighten with a strange mixture of fear and calm. I took my place at the head of the long glass table. My sister's laughter suddenly pierced the silence as she burst in without knocking, her friends trailing behind like obedient shadows. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, her voice echoing off the sleek walls. Mr. Whitaker didn't flinch. Instead, he gestured towards me with open respect. "Ms. Keller is the majority shareholder," he said calmly. "This is her company, ma'am." The room fell silent. For the first time in my life, I saw my sister speechless, and in that silence, I felt my entire soul finally exhale. If this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. It helps more people discover these true stories of silent power. As I entered the boardroom, the quiet hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. The CEO, Mr. Whitaker, stood by the panoramic window overlooking the city skyline, his silver hair glowing softly in the morning sun. He turned and smiled when he saw me. "Good morning, Emily," he said warmly. "We're ready when you are." I nodded, feeling my chest tighten with a strange mixture of fear and calm. I took my place at the head of the long glass table. My sister's laughter suddenly pierced the silence as she burst in without knocking, her friends trailing behind like obedient shadows. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, her voice echoing off the sleek walls. Mr. Whitaker didn't flinch. Instead, he gestured towards me with open respect. "Ms. Keller is the majority shareholder," he said calmly. "This is her company, ma'am." The room fell silent. For the first time in my life, I saw my sister speechless, and in that silence, I felt my entire soul finally exhale. Mid-story CTA. If this story resonates with you, please hit like and subscribe. It helps more people discover these true stories of silent power. She hesitated before pulling out a chair far from me, her movements stiff with humiliation. For the first time, her gaze dropped to the floor instead of meeting mine with arrogance. Mr. Whitaker resumed the meeting, outlining my plans for expanding mental health support programs across the company's branches. As he spoke, I felt my sister's eyes burning into me, full of questions she'd never dared to ask before. I remembered all those nights I spent studying business administration online after 12-hour hospital shifts, my fingers trembling with exhaustion as I held textbooks over sleeping patients' charts. I remembered the small studio apartment where I ate instant noodles while reviewing quarterly reports and investment forecasts. She never saw that version of me, the quiet builder, the silent learner, the woman who used her exhaustion as fuel. And sitting there, hearing my name spoken with respect by executives, I realized none of them had seen me coming either. That was my greatest strength. Mr. Whitaker finished presenting the initiative and turned to me with genuine anticipation. "Would you like to add anything, Miss Keller?" he asked. I looked around the boardroom, at the faces of people who once dismissed me as just another tired nurse. I stood up slowly, feeling my heart beat with a calm determination. "Thank you, Mr. Whitaker," I said softly. "This project isn't just an expansion strategy. It's a promise. A promise to all our employees who work through the night like I did, unseen and unthanked. I want them to know that their sacrifices build the foundations of this company." The room was silent, not with dismissal, but with respect. I caught a glimpse of my sister, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. She looked down quickly, hiding her trembling lips. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just shocked. She was ashamed, and that feeling in her eyes, that silent recognition, was worth more to me than any spoken apology. As I sat down, Mr. Whitaker nodded approvingly, and the meeting continued with strategic discussions, market analyses, and operational updates. My sister remained silent in her seat, shrinking further with every mention of my name attached to decisions and approvals. At one point, her friend leaned over to whisper something, but she brushed it off, her eyes never leaving the table. I remembered how she used to boast about her quick promotions, her expensive lunches with middle managers, her branded handbags displayed like trophies of conquest. But here, none of that mattered. Influence wasn't bought with handbags or loud gossip. Influence was built slowly, with quiet resolve, forged in places no one cared to look, like hospital break rooms at 3 a.m. or silent apartments lit by desk lamps flickering over balance sheets. My sister didn't understand that type of power, and watching her realize it, I felt no triumph, only a deep, unbreakable peace blooming softly inside my chest. When the meeting ended, executives began filing out with polite nods and murmured congratulations. Mr. Whitaker stayed behind for a moment, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "I'm proud of what you're building here, Emily," he said quietly. I smiled and thanked him, feeling a warmth spread through me that no luxury gift could replicate. As he left, I gathered my papers slowly, feeling my sister's gaze still fixed on me. When I finally looked up, her eyes were wide, glossy with unspoken words. "Emily, why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice breaking the fragile silence between us. I met her eyes calmly. "Because it wasn't yours to know," I replied softly. "It was mine to build." She flinched slightly, as if my words carried a truth she wasn't ready to hold. I didn't say them to hurt her. I said them because they were real. My life wasn't built to prove her wrong. It was built to prove myself right. She sat there, silent, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling as they clutched her designer purse. For years, she believed she was the pinnacle of success in our family, the one everyone admired. I was just the tired nurse in scrubs, always smelling of antiseptic and metal corridors. But today, in that boardroom, everything shifted. I gathered my folders, feeling the polished surface of the table cool beneath my fingertips. As I stood, she whispered, almost too softly for me to hear, I didn't know you were capable of all this." I paused, looking down at her, my shadow falling over her expensive suit. "That's because you never looked beyond what you could mock," I said gently, without venom. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away, trying to maintain the last fragments of her dignity. I didn't feel pity for her. I felt acceptance. She was who she was, and I was who I had become. Silently, powerfully, unbreakable. I walked out of the boardroom, feeling the soft carpet under my shoes, each step echoing with a quiet finality. The reception staff stood as I passed, nodding respectfully. Outside, the morning sun had risen higher, flooding the lobby with gold. I paused at the glass doors, looking back one last time. Through the reflection, I saw my sister still sitting in that boardroom chair, staring down at the table as if trying to piece her world back together. For a moment, I felt the ache of old memories, childhood fights, whispered secrets under blankets, her braiding my hair before school. But life had changed us. Her path was paved with applause and shortcuts. Mine was carved in silence and sweat. As I stepped into the morning light, I realized I didn't hate her. I didn't want revenge. Her humiliation wasn't my victory. My victory was knowing that I no longer needed her approval to exist, to matter, to lead. As I walked towards my car, parked in the reserved executive spot, I felt the cool morning breeze brush against my face, carrying the scent of fresh coffee from the nearby cafe. I thought about the patients I had cared for during all those nights, the quiet moments holding trembling hands in the dark, whispering strength into broken spirits. Those nights weren't wasted. They were what shaped me, what taught me the silent language of dignity, resilience, and real service. I unlocked my car and placed my folders on the passenger seat, taking a moment to breathe in the quiet power of that morning. For so long, I thought success meant loud recognition, applause, and validation from those who once belittled me. But standing there, under the soft golden sky, I realized true success was silent. It was invisible to the arrogant. It was the peace that blooms when you no longer have anything to prove. Not to your family, not to the world, not even to yourself. I drove away from the building, watching its glass facade disappear behind me in the rearview mirror. My phone buzzed with messages from board members congratulating me on the initiative, on the acquisition, on my quiet yet unstoppable rise. But I didn't feel pride swelling in my chest. What I felt was deeper than pride. It was serenity. At a red light, I glanced at my reflection in the mirror. Tired eyes, faint lines of exhaustion, lips curved in a gentle smile. I thought about calling my sister, about saying something to ease the fracture I knew she felt within herself. But I stopped. Some lessons are meant to be learned in silence. Just as my journey had been quiet, her understanding would have to be too. As the light turned green, I drove forward, feeling the weight of old burdens lifting off my shoulders, replaced by a feather-light freedom that carried only one truth. I was never just a night nurse. I was always building an empire in the dark. That evening, after a long day of board approvals and final sign-offs, I returned home to my small apartment, overlooking the city. I hadn't moved into a mansion or bought luxury cars. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to. My joy was in the quiet moments, watering the small plants on my balcony, feeling the cool tiles under my feet, brewing herbal tea as the sunset painted the kitchen walls gold and crimson. I placed my phone on silent mode, ignoring the flood of notifications, and sat on the floor with my cup clasped in both hands. The warmth seeped into my skin, grounding me. I thought about the girl I used to be, trembling with fatigue in hospital elevators, wondering if her life would ever amount to something more. I smiled at her quietly in my mind. We did it, I whispered to her, to myself, to the universe. And we did it without noise. We did it with grace. Later that night, as the city lights flickered like distant stars beyond my window, I lay in bed listening to the quiet hum of life below. I thought about tomorrow's meetings, the projects awaiting my approval, the hundreds of employees depending on decisions I would make with care. But more than that, I thought about the silent army of night workers, the nurses, cleaners, security guards, caregivers, people whose names were never spoken in boardrooms, yet without whom no empire could stand. I promised myself I would always see them, always honor their sacrifices, because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to carry entire worlds on tired shoulders while others slept. Closing my eyes, I breathed in the cool darkness of my room, feeling an unbreakable calm spread through me. My sister's laughter no longer haunted my thoughts, because in the end, silence had become my fortress, and within it, I was untouchable. The next morning, I woke before dawn, as I always had during my nursing years. The habit never left me, and truthfully, I never wanted it to. I brewed fresh coffee and stepped onto my small balcony, feeling the first whispers of morning wind against my skin. The sky was still dark, a deep indigo slowly softening into lavender at the edges. I closed my eyes and listened to the city waking up, distant engines rumbling, a dog barking somewhere far below, the muted song of an early bird. In that quiet, I felt infinite. I no longer needed anyone's validation to stand tall. I thought of my sister, wondering if she was awake, wondering if her world felt as fragile now as mine once did. I hoped, silently, that she would find her own strength one day, because power built on arrogance collapses quickly, but power built in silence becomes unbreakable. And that was my final revenge, to live unstoppable, without ever needing to raise my voice. Thank you for watching until the end. If you've ever lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the loudest impact is made in silence.